Hello, my name is Saudiptendu Ray and I'll be talking about the human experience of partition, understanding partition of the Indian subcontinent through oral history. Now, if we need to understand or study about partition, we need to look into primary sources. Now, the primary sources are of different types, but one of the most trusted ones, the ones which people follow a lot, are the archival ones. These include Constituent Assembly of India reports, Lord Mountbatten papers, public records like police records, military records, Ministry of Railway records, and also letters and diary entries done by important prominent persons such as Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, all these are very good sources to study partition, but they miss out on one very important aspect, that is the human aspect of partition. Partition was a very human experience. It was drawn on a map, but the experience was felt by people who lived at villages. People lost their loved ones, people lost their family, a lot of people died, and it was a very traumatic experience for millions and millions of people. So, to study partition just through archival material, what happens is we miss out on these stories, the emotions behind what happened when somebody drew a line. So I'll just give you two examples. One example is of that of Cyril Ratcliffe. Now, Cyril Ratcliffe came to India for a few weeks and he was given the responsibility of demarcating the line in Punjab as well as in Assam. Now, what happens is, if you are doing some very important work like that, you need data. What he looked into was the census data. He was given the census data, and in that census data, he got that certain districts in Punjab and in Bengal had either Muslim majority or Muslim were in minority. So the Muslim majorities went to obviously Pakistan and the Hindu majorities went to India. So this was easily done on paper, but the impact of it was felt by people. People lost their fields, agricultural fields. Their houses were now either in Pakistan or the country which is not something that they had expected it to be. Their families were divided and a lot of uprooting was done. So the impact of it is always felt by people when you do something on paper. And the second example that I'll give is the railway records. The railway records highlighted the number of people, exact number of people moving from India to Pakistan and vice versa from Pakistan to India. So what they don't show is what was the experience of these people on those trains. Some of them were raped, some of them were harassed, some of them died. But those experiences we don't understand, or we don't get those experiences out of a normal data. So what we need to do is look into a different approach. The approach was highlighted by historians such as Urvashi Butalia and Gyanendra Pandey. Now these people have looked into partition, and their primary source is not archival material primarily, but their primary source is oral history. They are basing their work on oral history. This is the kind of approach that is important here, and this is what the Partition Museum does. So what the Partition Museum does is that it brings together empirical or archival data and the oral histories of the partition survivors together, and in the process what it does is it gives a comprehensive chart of the story of partition. It starts from the initial demand of a separate state both in India and in Pakistan, which was at that point not Pakistan but only India, but a separate demand of Pakistan was there at that point of time. So it starts from that time and it moves to the initial clashes, or the Hindu-Muslim clashes, the Sikh and Muslim clashes in Punjab and Hindu-Muslim clashes in Bengal, to that phase. And then when the clashes intensifies, it also narrates the horrors the people had to face during that period of time. And then we move into the events of partition. So moving into partition, and then the post-partition traumas that people had to face. So all this has been covered through an amalgamation of empirical data as well as your the oral histories. Partition Museum has become a repository of oral histories of the partition survivors, and the main endeavor of the Partition Museum is to tell the story of partition through the experiences that the people had faced during that torrid times. To highlight the importance of oral histories in our endeavor of understanding partition, I would like to share the experiences shared by Mrs. Sudarshana Kumari. Mrs. Sudarshana Kumari is a partition survivor, and she was 8 years old at the time of partition. She was old enough to remember those days, and she gives a very vivid description of that particular day when they had to leave everything and run for their lives. One late evening, her mother was cooking for the night. The tandoor was hot and baking, and they were set for the dinner, when suddenly they saw the sky above them turn red. It was red because of the fire that was there from the houses that were being burnt, and there was this noise around them from people screaming. They started running. They left everything behind and they started running. They ran for 2 days straight without food and water. On their way, they saw many of their loved ones and the people whom they knew getting killed. And she also describes that those days it rained. It was a summer and the rain was just constant. It was one of the rainiest summers. It rained so much that the dead bodies started rotting, and the stench from the dead bodies was horrific, she describes. She moved from one place to another for 2-3 days, and then they reached a kafila where they had some protection from attackers. Once the trucks came to pick them up, more than 100 to 150 people were loaded like animals on those trucks. But nobody complained. They were just relieved that now there's some security that's there for them. They entered India through Wagah border, which was border now, but initially it was just Wagah. A few days back, it was just Wagah.